planet and they move it around. So now there's a lot of people that are coming out in the last 20 years talking about how there's no possible way that the moon evolved there. That it, some people have used the term dragged, was dragged into our solar
I
system.
think Andy
And that,
Warhol created the moon.
so the thing is like, how could there actually be astrology or astrophysics if some of the planets that are in our solar system aren't even real? That are some kind of satellite that can be, moved around or, are fixed temporarily where they're at.
Well, I have
I
a
mean, yeah, they have
suggestion for
years.
that. And I've really been thinking about what is real right now. And I'm convinced that they changed what is real after World War II. And they bombed the rest of the world and they created this fictional place called the United States of America. And they populated it with a whole bunch of irregular ideas that had never been tried. And they say, okay, let's let you try these ideas. And the ideas they give us to try are the same ideas that the Nazis had from before the war, and 80 years later, we're back to the same old, same old, and that there's going to be another phase change because we can't accept the world that we're currently in. It's been constructed based on a false reality that didn't bother to tell us the truth about people like Tesla or Rife or Walter Russell or what's his name? Anyway, you know who I mean. The
Right, but this is another
Steiner.
deal,
Yes.
by so um let's see, so other thing too is like, if you go back to um some of the information that the Greys have left, on the planet, that a lot of people haven't even read. And a lot of it was left in 1947 through a woman who was a military nurse, and I forget what her name is, but you can go online and you can buy the book. But it's called what's it called? Alien Interview. So right before this woman was going to die in 2007, she released all of the military documents because it just so happened that when she was doing she was a nurse. They had the UFO crash. There was only one gray alien in there that was an actual gray. The other ones were biosuits. They were not real beings. Kind of more like humanoid, robotic kind of thing. And so when they captured, so the story talks about it. And I've talked to other extraterrestrials that I've been around about this. And what they said is that after, the last big wipeout on the planet, where they got rid of everything, and they had to redisperse, recreate humanoids, and I believe all of them replicate humanoids. I don't think that there's just one extraterrestrial race that's replicating humanoids. There's several. So what happened was is that when before they started to repopulate the Earth, they actually made it into a Hollywood set. So all these pyramids in Egypt and all these different things aren't even real. They serve zero purpose. And a lot of the Greys even say they're not even well done. We were sloppy and lazy when we created it. That's why you see all this leftover rock that's partially cut. Because we really didn't finish the job, creating this Hollywood set to put you in. The next round of humanoids, the next experiment. I mean, mostly we're here because we're biological material for them, right? And in order to keep that biological material alive, they have to put an energetic source in it. They have to have a battery to operate that's operating that system so that they can utilize the biological material. And this is why also too, like, all these things are happening to us, like being over vaccinated, 5G, all these different kinds of experiments, that work on killing us, And they call it, even our government has been involved in it, called the slow kill. So, I mean, they're doing scientific experiments on us. And how we know that is look what kind of scientific experiments we do on animals. Where did we learn that? And then, like, scientific experiments on all the military. Agent Orange, for one example. One of my uncles was sprayed twice and died of Lou Gehrig's disease because of it. And there's been numerous military people who've been hospitalized in the VA in the past. I mean, it seems like it's sort of trying to change right now under Trump administration, the laws that govern the VA. But, there were VA veterans officials that were, or veterans that were, stuck in hospitals that couldn't get out, that had all kinds of crazy cancer, and they weren't treating them for cancer, right? So they didn't actually want to treat them for cancer. They didn't want to give them any kind of treatment or drugs because basically they needed to see how they were going to die because they were a lifetime experiment of being sprayed with Agent Orange. So their studies weren't complete. And this is what some of these veterans were being told.
There's a lot that the veterans, yeah. There's a lot of misrepresentation there. Go ahead.
Right. So the thing is we have the Greys who taught, and probably other extraterrestrials that, have gotten governments involved to do experimental stuff on their own populations, just like, and then what they do is they take us, for, then I think that there's like, I would say there's a huge, I think that, was it Eisenhower? One of the presidents signed off on allowing the extraterrestrials, the Greys, because they're the workers for a lot of the other extraterrestrials. They're the ones that are really good in biological engineering. But they gave them permission to abduct, so many people a year for certain kinds of technology. And there's a lot of people who have talked about this, right? That have been involved in it and, told things on their deathbed and blah, 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 blah. So now we're just at a massive upscale. We're at a huge upscale of how many people are being abducted and then how many people are being abducted who are not like being returned. There's like huge amounts of people being abducted and not being returned. So, and they love to really abduct people like in forests, but they can abduct you right out of your house and you not know it. The only way that you can kind of know that you're being abducted is like you may wake up with some dried blood on your shirt, on your face, your nose, red marks on your arms that itch. Sometimes, like I'll wake up and I'll have like a new type of implant and I'll have like a red mark, like an injection spot, and it'll be really itchy and I can feel, because a lot of those implants, they'll be on the surface, but they have like, they're biological as well. And what they do is they dig down in close to the bone eventually. So they're, pretty much invisible, to the naked eye or whatever. So the thing is like I think a lot of people need to believe that there's going to be a rapture, that we're somehow going to be saved from this. And I think a lot of people believe that there's going to be ascension, that we're going to be escaped from it. But this is the deal. If we're supposed to be free will beings and part of the experience of being here is to release ourselves, from the entrapments and the prisons, then, and we're an experiment and they're watching us, they're not going to be like, oh, hey, well, we'll just save you because you're stupid.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this whole area. I sort of got wasted with David Wilcock and Corey Goody and some of these other people when they went off into the secret space program and all the aliens and those worlds. And I shut that down and didn't pay attention to it while looking at things that were in different reality. And so some of the stuff that you mentioned today seems similar to some of the stuff I've heard people talk about what they're up to, how do their alien sets and your alien sets differ, or are they the same sets? And what's your impression of the idea that all aliens are beneficial, or some? Obviously they're not, but there's a lot of people running around who think if there weren't if there were malevolent aliens, we wouldn't be here because they would have already killed us. And I don't know.
Well, but this is the deal. Okay, if you have watchers, you have a babysitter, you have parents, whatever kind of language or term that you want to use for extraterrestrials, what you what you think is beneficial to you may not be ultimately what they think is beneficial to you. So you think you want to, you think like you would like to go be rescued. And this, okay, so let's just talk about this for a minute because this is something really hard for people to swallow. And I don't watch TV, but I walked into the house on the property that I'm living in my van. And there was this commercial in Reno about this plastic surgeon who gave this lady a facelift, this older lady a facelift. And the lady literally says that, she toyed around with getting a facelift for like 9 years and then finally did it. And she was so glad she did it because immediately after that, she was asked out by 2 different guys. And so the, $10,000 facelift was so worth it because she got asked out on a date. And I was thinking, wow, so having a guy in your life or dating somebody or possibility of getting married is way more important than your body and the skin on your face and the meridians that run through the tissues that they have to cut so that the skin on your face will never have a relationship to your brain ever again and won't regenerate and won't be natural, will slowly die as dead fake skin on your face. So having somebody in your life or dating or getting something is way more important than your actually body and the health of your body. Really horrified me because that's what we're dealing with, and that's what they're dealing with, the overseers or whatever you want to say. So if you want to say they're all pretty much malevolent, they are to an extent because they don't really care what you think is right and perfect. What would be right and perfect in your world because we are so effed up in our experience of what we think right and perfect would be. We can't even figure that out. So we have to have malevolent beings watching over us, giving us, I don't know, sometimes tougher and tougher experiences. I mean, my star family, so I'm a star kid. I was born first time on this planet. Lots of people here have incarnated here so many times you couldn't even believe it. But it's because you're trapped. It's a prison. The heaven experience is a tractor beam. So as soon as you die, that tractor beam goes on. It pulls you in. It gives you the experience that you need in order to hold you in an electronic prison. Wipe your slate clean, and then as soon as they're ready to ship you back in. So it's a closed loop cycle. And only people who have worked really, really hard with old ancient types of shamanism and native work have been able to leave with their bodies and cross through physical timelines and travel present, past, and future, right? And there's been a few of them that have been talked about. In the Lynn Andrews trilogy, there was twin dreams. Her physical body was 2,000 years old, but she was traveling through timelines. And I'm not talking about timelines where your spirit leaves your body or your mind leaves your body and travels through timelines. I'm talking about the whole vehicle and all of it, the whole enchilada going. But it takes huge amounts of practices in order to be able to escape and be able to do what you want. Don Juan, he was Carlo Castaneda's teacher. Carlo Castaneda didn't get to leave. Carlo Castaneda died a physical death, but all of the people that he studied under all left as one big community to create another world next to this one. Because Don Juan really hated, no matter how powerful Don Juan was, he was extraordinarily powerful. he hated this world because it was kind of unchangeable. It had its own constructions, right? So anything that we also believe in this world is fake. It's been set up for us to believe certain kinds of things. So I look now, even at my family, my star family, I look at them as malevolent because they have done some of the worst things to me that have ever been done on this planet to ensure that I was going to live. You know, that I was going to get to a point where they needed me to do a job. And so they have done horrible things to me. And this is where I have a huge conflict with them. You know, when I got to visit them, they pulled me up into the hologram, you know, and communicated with me. And I had like 7 lines of information coming in at once that made, like, constructed a whole picture. You know, at first I was really happy because I felt like, well, finally somebody, you know, it was arranged because I had felt like I had fallen from grace. When I had brain cancer, like, it changed my biological structure. It changed my mind. It changed my emotions. And I was a wreck for a really long time trying to heal. I was super, and I just didn't feel like I had the gift anymore. You know, I didn't feel like I had my powers anymore. And so I went through this period of, like, you know, if I've fallen from grace, could somebody tell me, like, how that happened? You know, what kind of trespass did I make? What did I do? You know, because I could really use some of that grace right now. You know, I could really use some of those abilities right now. And when it all came out was they said that they had given me the brain cancer because they needed me to halt. They needed me to, like, slow down because they didn't want me to get murdered. And then they'd have to go about, again, you know, sticking somebody else here. And that they wouldn't, if I got murdered, they wouldn't have enough time to, like, pull me out of here, my, you know, soul or whatever else. And just like this whole thing. And so they said, you know, you haven't fallen from grace. You know, we are still with you. We're still your family, you know, blah, 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 blah. And then I thought about that for about 2 months. And then I thought, F you, F you, F you, F you. You people have given me head injuries. You have, and I mean, you know, you corrected them after. And then you give me brain cancer, and you've done all these really horrible things to me to, like, halt me because, you know, I'm a lot stronger than you thought, and I'm moving along too fast or whatever else. And so it's been until recently, probably the last 3 months, that I've been not as angry. And so I closed the door on a lot of them because I even consider my star family malevolent because they didn't come up and say, hey, you know, we're going to give you brain cancer and, you know, you're going to come to the edge of death and it's going to be really horrible. It's going to be like the worst experience you've ever had. And when you come out of it, you're going to wish that you had died. You know, so, you know, they weren't really transparent. And that's the problem that I have with everything in this world, is that there is no transparency from anything, anyone, an event, nothing. Nobody is transparent with the population. So if the ETs aren't transparent with the population, what does that tell you about them? And then the ones that are really, really high functioning, they don't get involved, right? Why would they get involved? They come here, they send their scientific people here, they look at the plants. Sometimes they take plants to go take somewhere else and maybe re-terraform a planet or whatever else in order, you know, to put other beings on those planets. And I have to tell you, working on people, when I travel people's timelines, shamanistically, work I've been doing since I was 23, trained to do, but it came naturally from the Lakota Sioux medicine woman who taught me how to do a lot of this work. Because I had already had it, you know what I mean? I just needed to remember how to be able to do these kinds of things. But when I do online sessions and I travel through and I look at the timelines of people, and sometimes I get sent back to the very place where they originated energetically on certain different planets, where a lot of people were kidnapped in some cases, or they got moved to another planet, or they traveled to another planet, and that's where a lot of the harvesting kind of stuff takes place. And I've met a few people who are just energy fields, like an orb, like an amethyst colored purple orb, and that this is how they were on their planet, as a community. It was a purple amethyst orbs that operated as, these energy fields. And they'd never had bodies or anything else. And so when they were harvested from other planets because of the energy fields to be forced into biological suits here, their bodies were in disarray. And nothing that they could do, didn't matter whether it was diet or whatever else, could help the body, because their field was not really compatible with a biological suit, because it never had been altered or upgraded or downgraded or whatever in order to be put into a biological suit. So, and I've traveled to other planets through other people where they were very community oriented, like beautiful planets, beautiful beings, and one of the people I worked on, she was so difficult on her planet that they actually gave her away to be harvested, to be brought here. So a lot of these people that didn't overly function in communities on other planets, or who were the black sheep, or who were very difficult to deal with, or criminal, in some cases their planet, made decisions to put them in electronic prisons and then allow them to be harvested, to be taken to other planets as a lesson, to learn how to be more conformed, to learn how to work in a community and work together as a group, as one, right? So there have been people that have been booted off their own planets because they have been so difficult about not wanting to learn how to be one, how to be unified, and how to work that way. So, and then they've ended up here. So my belief is that all extraterrestrials are malevolent in some way.
Yeah.
And they can't really be trusted. And a lot of the ones that people are channeling now, you can go to my YouTube site, and I have some basic information about a lot of stuff, but I think it's like Don't Believe Bullshit Channelers video, and it talks about why and the experience I had. And this was before the stuff started coming out with Kane. I forget what her first name is. Kane, and she started doing this work where she was taking EMF like recording machines, and she was using like white noise, and she was asking questions and stuff, and then she would get answers through the white noise, from the beings who were there. And then what happened was that she accidentally, or something started happening, she started playing them in reverse. And so these beings would say things like, oh yeah, and she'd ask, oh, so, how is everything on our planet? Oh, everything's fine. You're going to get help and aid. Things are going to work out. These are like, I don't know, she was doing these in the 90s. And then she'd reverse them and listen to, and she was hearing, oh yeah, those stupid humans, they have no idea. They're so stupid. They'll believe anything. And it was a lot of the reptilians that, weren't in biosuits, that were floating around, that we call shadow people or demons. Certain kinds of stronger entities. Excuse me. And they've learned how to travel across electrical power lines. And so they can cross the globe without really needing human bodies anymore as a, electrical outlet.
Is that why they're spraying chemtrails, to give them a way of passing through the atmosphere through the conduction that's now going on?
No, the chemtrails are actually, so pretty much everybody that channels what they think is some light being, why would a higher evolved being give you that kind of information? A lot of the shaman people that I've worked with and like native people say, you know, the shinier the luster, the shinier the information, the more demonic, the more dark it is, because they have to appear so light in order for you to, you know, be involved with them. If they showed up exactly how they look, you would never want to deal with them. So you have to be careful about listening to some of that stuff. And those people have agendas. A lot of people who are channeling information, the reason they were approached is because they need, you know, some kind of self-importance. And, you know, there's one guy in particular that channels supposedly Syrians and from Syria. And, you know, he has some, you know, handicap issues. And so they always pick on people who, and I'm not saying that he's channeling Syrians. I think he's channeling reptilians. And they're completely lying. They're giving like this major like false story. I mean, sometimes they'll give us like a few tidbits that may be real, but most of it not. But the chemtrail, so I'll drop this bomb. I had a client a while ago who, you know, when I first met him, I had an inkling that there was something off, you know. And I've had a lot of clients that are hybrids and fully know it. Some of them, some of the hybrids don't know it, right? Some of them, you know, they're just given jobs. They go through police academy, whatever, blah, blah, blah. They get some of the lower jobs. They become cops and sheriffs and this, that, and the other thing. And a lot of them, they don't really know that they're hybrids because, you know, they're not enough hybrid to, I don't know, exercise power, you know, over people. So they use them as like demolition derbies, you know, to attack people, assault people, cause fear, because that's what they're going to do because it's in their nature. They also call it the mark of Cain, by the way. So, so basically, he had found me. And he asked me to start working on him because his body was having, you know, some issues. And it would be really interesting because I would go to his house and there wouldn't really be anything in his house. And there'd just be like a few things. It was kind of interesting because it was like the house was set up in a way that I would think that he was, you know, meditates and kind of on the yogi end. But he also was, you know, one of the chief financial officers, which I'm not going to say exactly which one because I don't want this to come back and bite me in the ass, of a huge international research company worldwide. You know, he's the big guy. He deals with the big stuff. And so you have like this hybrid that's fully conscious that they're a hybrid reptilian in charge of what? One of the chief financial officers for one of the top international research institutes in the world. But anyway, after I got to know him and he got to realize that I was smart, that I was actually intelligent, we would actually work on him and then we'd sit and talk for like 2 or 3 hours just about different things, right? And I think that I sort of conveyed to him the plight of humans, you know what I mean? Like, you know, that the environment is getting more and more dangerous for humans and it's really causing a lot of damage. And, you know, he had the typical, you know, scar where his tail was removed, you know, down on his sacrum, which is, you know, down by his tailbone area. And it looked like it was a massive enough surgery that they had to like completely remove it from the bone and everything else in order for it not to grow back because, you know, reptiles, what happens? You pull their tail off and it grows back, right? So it's a major invasive surgery. And so this is the other point. How many hospitals know this? How many hospitals do tail removal? You know, how many hospitals, here we go with that transparency shit again. So, you know, all this stuff is going on around us, and we're like, you know, we're going to ascend. We're going to have the rapture, and it's all extraterrestrial everywhere around us. It's all ET shit. So, anyway, so one day, it was like the last time that I worked on him, and we had this really long conversation, and he said, you want to know why the reptilian race is destroying the planet? And I said, yeah, I'd really like to hear that story. And he said, well, it's like this. We live in worlds where there's a lot of acid. He goes, look what, you know, we've done to Mars and Venus and some of these other planets. We've completely destroyed it of any kind of foliage to a pretty, you know, barren, dry, acidy, not producing a lot of oxygen. There's no alkaline, there's no plant life. And he said, and this is what happens, you know, when we take over a planet. And he said, you know, we do, he's, you know, he doesn't eat humans. But he said, you know, a lot of the reptilians do eat humans. It's their preferable meat. So it was easy for them, you know, to come here and eat people, you know, swipe people off. And this is why you see a lot of the satanic stuff, you know, that's like morphed into Hollywood and stuff, where they're drinking human blood. Now there was a thing that just came out in the mainstream news, that how science is saying that if you drink young human blood, you can extend your life. I just saw that. It came out on a news report yesterday. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it all like it's normal. You know, it's not normal. Look what happens when cows are fed each other. They get mad cow disease. You know, look what happens when other animals cannibalize each other. You know, you have a lot of other serious problems. You know, like we should be in the Vedas, you know, in the India way, you know, Ayurvedic medicine and stuff. We should have never eaten meat in the first place. And it takes, under their traditions, 10,000, 40,000, 100,000 years, it takes like 7 years of eating non-dairy, non-meat in order to wipe out the messages and the memories and the diseases that those animals that you ate carry, that you put into your system. So eating meat was something that we were trained to do as humans. It is not really our diet, and it makes us more aggressive. And there's a lot of ancient traditions that talk about this, like, you know, Hindu and a lot of along those kinds of lines, right? Probably one of the oldest oral histories that it was left on the planet from when, you know, the Christians went through and burned everybody's information in their libraries, right? So anyway, so he said, you know, basically they need a really acid environment. And he said, you know, chemtrails is being used for a lot of different things, but mostly they use it to acid the planet. And that's why it's killing everything, because there's more you know, reptilians now on the planet that can't live in alkaline conditions. And then that's why they want to put a lot of, like he said, the fluoride is not really fluoride anymore. It's a gas. It's a chemical gas that's being made and manufactured that is put in the water because we need water that's acidic. And he said, so the planet is actually being transformed in the way that it is because there are a lot of reptilians on the planet that we need this, you know, we're big meat eaters. We don't eat plants, you know, we don't eat any of that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like what he basically had, you know, said to me about what was going on. So, and, you know, of course, he would know. He's one of the chief financial officers of the largest, you know, international research organization in the world. So, he is part of that. How do we keep the reptiles alive? And he said, the sad part is that it's also killing our meat supply. It's also killing our food supply, because the food that we prefer needs a highly alkaline state to thrive, and not have disease and not get sick. And he said, so the stuff that we're doing is just really creating a lot of sickness and damage. So I go back and I think about that. But I also think that they're using chemtrails to help assist with HAARP. I had a vision when I was young, really young, about like a Sky TV where, the leader of the world or the president or whatever else could speak to the population everywhere in the globe on the Sky TV. And now I realize, the more chemtrails they put in the atmosphere, the combination of chemtrails, the more that is creating a holographic experience. And now you have 5G that's bouncing off the metal mirror chemtrail in the sky. And, you start to see people having massive hallucinations that they think are ascension, when it's the 5G that is, projecting frequencies and holographic things onto the chemtrail TV in the sky, and then it's bouncing down. Like as soon as 5G went up, in California, all kinds of people now have tinnitus. They all have vision problems. They see things crawling up walls. They see things crawling around on the floor. A lot of crazy things are going on. So, it's a whole frequency change, and they say that 5G is faster than thought. And this is really interesting. I watched this video the other day let me see if I can find it. This video the other day where the guy was talking about, I think it was on Strange Things.
Okay.
I think that's the YouTube channel, Strange Things. Anyway, but he was talking about how they're putting, like Wi-Fi, 5G stuff in roads and wherever else that they're putting them, that immediately as soon as it's activated, there are outbreaks of certain kinds of flus and viruses. And he was like, contemplating in the video that maybe the 5G was causing something vibrationally, in the people in that area specific, and that it was giving them.
Did I lose you?
In this one town,
okay,
they put Wi-Fi underneath all of the public roads, and right when they activated it, there was a massive outbreak in that town of yellow fever. So one of the things after watching that, I ended up replying to the video because, I have worked a lot with unbelievable out-of-the-box immunologists. I've had, other people, psychologists, other people in the field of medicine that are so far out of the box and unlicensed, and we're all underground. And I've worked in clinics alongside of these people, because I do work that's an anomaly that other people don't do. But there are so many things that go on with the human body that would blow people's minds, right? That regular doctors don't even study, or they don't even try to study it, or they have zero interest in it. And so I was contemplating this. And so back when so basically my reply, I'll just put my reply on here after thinking about it. As a traditional osteopath, I deal with the brain and the function of the brain and the reconnection of the body. The brain is the hard drive with all the data to heal, restore the body. I have been working with energy since a young child that teach me, tell me, and show me things that people are just starting to understand these days, and barely. I've been seriously attacked in the past by the state and the government for my work. However, interestingly, watching this video, something clicked for me. They may be introducing an illness vibrationally, the vibration and the signal of a virus into the energy field, the brain, which attaches to the DNA like a hook. The virus, the brain uses the virus attacks the DNA like a hook, which can stay permanently. Since everyone gets a different array of symptoms that start off with a virus, the vulnerable that already have like autoimmune system disease would become very sick and die over time with a virus hook on the DNA and the hard drive. Many viruses cause levels of brain damage, fevers, cause brain damage, and I basically said, I'm not an expert, but this is pretty simple. So back about 20 years ago, I was working on a guy, and he had brain cancer. And the thing is like, I knew he wasn't going to survive. There wasn't anything that was going to help him. But, I told him, let's see what we can ease. He's like, I just want to clear a few more things before I check out of this world. He goes, I've been working on myself, and there's just a few more things that I would like to clear. He said, in case I get shoved back here, he said that I'm not going to have on my plate. I said, okay, that's fine. That's fair enough. We work on that. So I went into his body, and I was looking at, I was taken in by some of the, I call it the stream. I call it the stream. I work with the stream. And so I was taken in to this, with the stream, took me into his DNA, and we were looking at his DNA strand. And the stream said, do you see that hook off the DNA strand? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, that's, from like 4 generations ago in his family line. And, the person that male chromosome, that man who was like, his great grandfather or whatever else, was seriously mentally unstable. And he was born mentally unstable. And so there was a lot of psychological damage done, and it was passed down to him. And it's what he's struggling with, part of it. So they said, basically, I forget what they said, the stream said, say this sentence. So I woke him up and I said the sentence. And it was really a trip because I watched his eyes blink, and then his body turned like a different color, like beet red. And then it went back to normal, and a lot of the gray color was gone in the body. And then we went back in to look at the DNA strand, and the hook was gone. And the stream said, we can carry things emotionally, genetically, psychologically, emotionally, and this is why, vaccines are extremely dangerous as well, because the vaccine, you get the vaccine and it creates a hook. So your DNA constantly regenerates your body now with that virus. And at any time, that virus can be passed on. That's why, you really shouldn't have to vaccinate your child if you got a certain kind of vaccination, because they already have that hook on their DNA. They're already carriers of that virus. That virus is already on their DNA because you were the one that actually created them. So this kind of stuff can stay long periods of time. We have a VET, post-traumatic stress disorder, boom, we got a hook on our DNA. So all these things create these hooks, and then when our body is trying to regenerate itself, depending on where that hook is on the DNA, it's going to replicate with that damage, right? So this is why we're aging, is because we have all these hooks on our DNA. So it would be easy, super easy to create like a 5G frequency that could make the body think that it was infected, and infected in a certain way that it would actually cause a hook, like a yellow fever hook, to be permanent long-term on our DNA strand and be passed down to other generations. So with frequency. So this would be like a super, super easy thing, actually. I mean, you know, the more I think about it, the
Oh,
more I think. So the thing is,
even
people are saying
worse,
5G is.
early
Huh?
vaccines probably prompted things that all they have to